Hi y'all, Spideera here with another ranking review, and this one is for La Pluie, okay, Pluie. I'm not going to butcher that word anymore. So, La Pluie is a kind of a sci-fi story that's set in a realistic scenario. And in this world, there are people who are born with this unusual thing that happens when it rains. They can't hear anything. They go completely deaf. And most of them, once they have gone deaf, can only hear one voice, and that voice is in their head. That's typically from another person who's suffering from the same condition. So it's widely believed among this community that the person who you're able to hear is, by default, your soulmate. So that's kind of the premise of what the people believe in this story. So a guy is born with this ability, or rather, actually, I think he develops it when he's like a teenager or something. It's like, I'm not sure if he had it his whole life or not. I saw this quite a while ago, but I do know he winds up with it, okay? And he doesn't like the fact that he has it. Other people think it's cool. You know, people who don't have it kind of wish they had it because, you know, they believe in the whole soulmate notion. And the idea that you would meet your soulmate in that manner, and you know, guaranteed the person talking to you is your true love, would solve so many problems. At least that's how most people view it. So with the story, that's kind of, you know, what they're implying is that, you know, if you hear the voice of your mate, then that is your true mate, and everyone around you is going to egg you on and say that's what it is. Anyway, so this guy knows that he's gone deaf when it rains, and his parents were also of that. They both had that issue growing up, that they heard each other's voice as well, and they got married, had a big beautiful family. So he's grown up in this big beautiful family, but they get a divorce. They don't see eye to eye anymore, and they divorce. So to him, it makes him believe that true love is not true, that there's no such thing as soulmates. And so for the most part, he becomes jaded. So while having these thoughts, lo and behold, he hears the voice of his soulmate. So in essence, that's what the story is about. The guy has to decide if he's going to answer his soulmate, if he's going to ignore his soulmate, if he's going to continue on his path of living alone to avoid being with anybody so that he doesn't become hurt in a relationship. So in that regard, it's one of those kind of shows that's, yeah, it's a little thought-provoking. It really is. And so, but that's the gist of it. A guy having to decide, is he going to accept a soulmate as fate, or is he going to ignore the whole thing and just live his life? So what was the ranking on this? This show actually is a 10. Now, it's a regular 10. And it's like, it's not an over the moon, oh my God, I got to put this in my collection and watch it over and over again 10. It's not that kind of 10. It's just a regular 10. So why is it a 10? It does check all the boxes in that, you know, if you go and look at the intro thing, it'll show you what points are for. And they met all the criteria. Good music, good presentation, good story. The guys behave the way guys would. You know, they behave like men. You know, the pacing is pretty good. It's a kind of a long show, but it's not so long that it bores you out of your mind or anything. So it meets all the boxes to be a 10. Now, so what can I actually tell you about why I ranked it as a 10? First is because it is an unusual kind of a show. This is not your run-of-the-mill basic BL story. You know, guy meets guy, they fall in love, and so forth. This is not that at all. This is a very unique take on a rather deep topic that people have argued since the beginning of time. Is love just a chemical imbalance? Is it science? Is it a universal thing? Is there such a thing as a soulmate? Is there such a thing as love at first sight? Is love even real? It's that kind of, all those kinds of questions are kind of thrown in your face in this particular story. As for the story itself and the actors have pretty good chemistry. It's an unusual chemistry in that, because this isn't your typical BL, it's not like the two characters are really trying to navigate the relationship as much as the main character trying to figure things out in his own head. Like, he's got to figure out where he stands before he even considers pursuing a relationship with anyone. And then he's got all these other people around him who are pretty much egging him on. So in that regard, it doesn't quite fit the narrative. Like, it doesn't really start hitting BL territory until almost halfway through. The actors are cute and they're fun to watch on the screen. Their interactions are, I would say the behavior between them, it's a tiny bit immature for how old they're supposed to present. But given the narrative of the story, it's really not that far off. I hate to sound like I'm going back and forth on the road here. It's not that far off for what they're trying to, for what they're trying to get you to see in this story. They do a very good job of kind of keeping you in that loop without pulling your attention on other things. And speaking of other things, that brings us to the question of sex. There are very few sex scenes in this, for the most part, and the scenes that are in it are extremely tame. They don't get points taken off for that, though, because of how the story is being presented. Sex really would not make a lot of sense until the end of the story, and even then it would kind of be one of those, okay, so did you finally come to terms with any of this, or is this just expected human behavior now that you've gone through all these ridiculous hoops? And they do kind of drag the audience through that thought, the provocation as well. Like, the idea is to get you to think about what the characters are presenting. So it does kind of draw you in, whether you want to be drawn in or not. It's very interesting. It really is. Now, it's not a super exciting film. It does have a little bit of excitement and a little bit of adventure. It's not boring. It's not super slow, but it's also not fast. This is one, I'd say this is a lukewarm film that's cool to watch if you just want to watch a well done, something that makes you kind of take a step back from reality for just a minute and deal with the biggest question that most of the world will ever have, which is the question of love and what is it really. So in that regard, I give them complete props and thumbs up. They did a really good job with it. They don't beat you over the head with it. They really kind of leave it open-ended to where you get to make your decision based on how you feel. And the actors don't really impose their ideology on you either. They let you see what their actions are. But it's not like they get in the camera saying it's not real or it is real. They don't really go there. And I kind of appreciate that, because this isn't something you would normally see in a completely fictitious BL. Where the love story itself is kind of secondary to the love question to begin with. And I think that's a nice little twist. So, will you like it? Now, because this is one of those that's more or less it's not typical. Like, there's not a whole lot of the kind of things you see in BL, the falling, the gazing, the hand holding, the swimming. You get a little bit of that, but it's very little. This is not excessively romantic. there are some tropes, the overly sexy rich guy showing up with his nice car, and you do get some of it. They do put a little bit of that in there. But that's not the real gist of the story. It's that's in very small portion, as it were. The love story itself is there, but it's not the heavy part of the story either. It's almost like, how I won't say how girls play hard to get, but in a way it's kind of like that. It's not that he's playing hard to get, it's that he's got to figure things out, but it comes across as him being a little bit the whole yeah I'll go to dinner but sort of thing. And it is not when he wants to express himself, there's not a whole lot of he doesn't give anyone a lot of space, like basically given how he already feels, and it's how he's indicating that within the story. It's kind of one of those things where he's giving the impression that if he does decide to go out with anyone at all, whether it's the voice in his head or not, if they fuck up once, it's over. That's kind of the impression that he sort of puts out there, that he's not in the mood for it. He's just not, which I think is kind of interesting. So, will you like it? It depends. If you like thought-provoking film, you will. If not, you won't. And that's kind of the best way I can tell you that. It's not fast-paced action. You're not getting a lot of the hardcore sex. You're not getting the wham-bam. You're not getting any of that. You're mostly getting a reasonably well-told, decent story that has an underlying message where they want you to take a minute and really chew on this, as it were. It's a kind of a mature show, and I don't mean mature sexually. I mean mature in what they're trying to get you to think about. So if that's what you like, you'll be okay with it. If you're looking for something, light, simple, and lighthearted, and playful, and all that, you might as well stay away from this one, because this is one of those where, if that's what you're looking for, you're just gonna get a bunch of oh damn, oh god, you're not gonna. That's really not gonna work for this particular film. Okay, so now did I like it? Actually, yes. That's why it's a 10. I really did enjoy it. But I will be honest, I only watched it once. I will probably never watch it again. At least not anytime soon. Like, I'll watch it again if I really need to address this topic, like for a debate or something. So I can revisit what my thoughts were about the subject, because, love is a touchy subject for everybody at the end of the day. At some point in your life, it becomes a touchy subject, even if it's not something you think about every day. But to be honest, one reason I would not watch it again is because this story pulls you in so far in the thought process arena that I can just about remember the entire story without having to watch the story, because every single scene kind of required some kind of mental invocation. Like, it was almost like they were using a lot of symbolism and what do you call that? It's like subliminal messaging. Like every little thing had a point to it. Now, at least that's how I took it. Now, I'm one of those people, I go, when I start thinking about something, then I go really deep with that thought. They might not have even known they were doing it or meant it when they did it. But even something simple, like the character who always had on the shades, he's not very prominent in the show. He's a side character. I think he's only in like 2 episodes, maybe 3. But, like, he's outside, and he has on shades. He's one of the brothers. And so while he comes across as this big scary guy, the things that he says are kind of the opposite of what he's portraying himself as. And then the fact that, he's like dressed in dark clothes. He's got on these shades, but at the same time, he's watering plants, and he's at their childhood home. And the whole entire setting, although they're kind of getting you to focus on the character and what he's saying at that moment, the symbolism kind of shows where, because they've got you thinking about love through the whole thing, remember? So the symbolism upon meeting this guy, it's like each of the characters that are involved, like they, he has a big family, so they introduce each family member. And to me, each family member is kind of representing a different take on what do you think love is. Like this guy is representing the protection part, the idea that if you hurt him if you hurt him, then I have the kind of love for him that will retaliate on his behalf. I'm coming after you if you hurt him. But by him wearing the dark shades, it kind of implies that he's saying that he'll go after anyone. He doesn't even see the guy in front of him. No, he does see him. I'm saying symbolically speaking. While he's threatening the guy who's in front of him, I'm trying to get you to see the picture here. He's verbally kind of threatening the person standing in front of him. His shades indicate he doesn't really know who he's talking to. He hasn't even really been introduced to this dude. And a moment before that, he was watering the plants, which kind of implies that he's more or less giving life to something. Like he is doing something that requires a gentle hand, because to water plants properly, you do have to be gentle about it. You can't just dump the water, or you'll drown the roots and cause root rot and all kinds of stuff. So it's like, so the representation here is another form of love. And then each character kind of, the way they're dressed, the way they speak, the way that they, what they're talking about, each of them is representing different types of love, while you are already contemplating, is love real to the extent of what you think love is? So yeah, it's that kind of thing. So will you like it? It's really one of those, how much thought do you want to put into a film? Like, I don't have to watch it again because I remember everything from it. Surprisingly, though, I don't remember much about I remember the one sex scene that I know I saw. The other one I vaguely remember. That was the hetero scene. And I don't think those two had any other sex scenes, but I'm not positive on that. But other than that, every little tiny thing that was in this show kind of made enough of an impact where I'll never have to watch it again, and yet I can probably invoke a majority of what was in this film. So that's what I mean by they did an excellent job with making that kind of film. Now, what I say, if you're a producer of films, don't use this as a blueprint, because the idea is to get your customer to come back and watch it over and over. So each time they have to buy a new ticket, if you're like, getting money off of ads and clicks and views and that kind of thing, shows that are this thought-provoking and yet straightforward, you only have to watch it once. So that's only one set of ads that you're going to get paid on. Whereas if this was a show that had more comedy, or had more lightheartedness, or was a little more vague even, you'd have repeat, like there's shows that I watch over and over again. This is not one of them. So I'm just saying, from a marketing standpoint, do not use this as your blueprint, because yeah, it's a good show, but you're not going to get the number of views that you would had you made a show that requires somebody to come back again. Just saying. Okay, so, but yeah, I did like it. And I think anyone who likes to take a really deep dive into something, you'll like it as well. Yeah, but yeah, that's about what I can. I'll leave that there. I think I've said enough about it to where if you want to watch it or not. Okay, so what do you need to know? It's about 12 episodes long. They're 45 minutes each. There's not any heavy sex in here. The sex that is in here is like PG, and you almost have to guess what they actually did, if they did anything. There's only one season that I know of. I don't know of any like uncensored versions. There's no additional movies that I know of. I haven't seen any ads for anything indicating they're going to do any follow-ups on this. Even though this is one that's asking some pretty deep questions, you don't really have to have any prior knowledge or context. They do a good job of explaining from the very first episode what it is that's happening with the characters and what you can expect from the characters and their interactions. Now, I would say, as kind of a side note, that apart from the fact that it's a good film, there's only one, well, there's a couple of negatives about the film, but that's mostly my personal call on it. A lot of it, I get why they did it, but to me, some of it is kind of, it takes away some of the realism, like there are some scenes that really make very little sense given how old these guys are supposed to be and how smart these guys are supposed to be. I mean, one guy is basically a writer and a marketing type person, and the other person is a veterinarian. So they're not stupid people. And so for other people to kind of behave as if they're naive and dumb, which they do quite often in this film, that part is a little bit off-putting, because it kind of begs the question of, why is everyone else seeing them in this light? Now, the only excuse I can give for that is maybe there's an underlying nuance within the story that they're trying to kind of get you to see, where just like society has a tendency to look at gay people and analyze their relationships as if it has something to do with us, which it does not. I think in this story, it could be along those same lines, where people look at this disability, as it were, the fact that you go deaf when it rains, but they see it as something positive, and they're trying to force something on that community of people, this small community that goes deaf when it rains. Everyone else around them who have nothing to do with it are imposing their ideas or their beliefs on this group. And it could be that they view them differently, and that's why everyone around them kind of treats them with kids' gloves, even though these guys are professional, they're intelligent, there's nothing mentally wrong with them. But I did notice that seemed to be kind of a trend within the story. Like, the brothers are way overly protective. The parents talk to him like he's a 10-year-old, and people tend to baby and coddle him as if, any kind of bad news at all, he's going to kill himself type thing, which is not ever implied from the point of view that he's representing, but it is very much implied from the other characters around him. So, and that could be a way for the writer or the producer of the show to get the audience to kind of see things from, and it's not that it happens to everybody, but I do think in a way they're kind of trying to shed light on how people have a tendency to treat people once they find out they're gay, as if we need to analyze their relationships, or we need to say, well, if you're born that way, that means that, there's only so many other people like you, so if you find that one, then it should last forever, that kind of ideology, which is not true. Every relationship is unique, and it's only between the people who are in it. So who knows? Maybe the whole point of the whole show was to tell people, mind your business. I'm kidding. Anyway, so there's really not a lot that you need to know. It's just a good film, and I think, like I said, if you like thought-provoking content, then this show will definitely get you to think a little bit. Alrighty, so with all that being said, if you've seen this show, or you think about watching it, or you decide to watch it, then please, by all means, let other people know in the comment section what you thought about it. Because it's very possible that, you might say, this is a no-brainer. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, please feel free to let us know in the comment section so we can kind of share the info and share the love. Because, I know my opinion is not necessarily going to be yours. Alrighty, so, as always, if you like it, you'll love it. And if you don't, you won't. This is Spideera signing off, and I'll see you in the next one.